Yesterday, the president dismissed the entire members of the cabinet, save only for one man, Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi. Now, in this analysis, I want us to look onto the sparing of Musalia Mudavadi. Why was he not fired? Why was he retained? Why didn't Mudavadi go home, despite calls for also the disbarment of his office, especially the office that he holds of the portfolio of the principal prime cabinet secretary, that people have always said that is unconstitutional and not penned anywhere on our Constitution 2010.
While acknowledging that the Finance Bill 2024 protests were hijacked by criminal elements, it is important to refocus our minds and efforts on the social contract we signed with the people of Kenya when we promised to deliver on better and improved service delivery across all sectors and regions of our beloved country. This joint NDIC comes at a defining moment in the history of our country. For the first time, our young people, or the so-called millennials and Gen Zs, have exercised their constitutional right to canvass our parliament to reject the Finance Bill 2024, demanding better governance and service delivery to the people. They have called us out with a particularly strong message to the government that they are not feeling us. In some instances, we gave them the ammunition to fight back by showing off our opulence, maybe corruption, and wasteful use of public resources. Essentially, they are pointing out how insensitive we are to the impact of our decisions on the well-being of our people in the face of difficulties arising from domestic and external shocks. They want to see a more inclusive government that is sensitive to the emerging issues affecting them and majority of Kenyans, including the high cost of living and lack of employment opportunities. In response to this unprecedented uprising, His Excellency the President, Dr. William Ruto, has led from the front by conceding our failures as leaders. He declined to consent to the Finance Bill 2024 and returned it to the National Assembly for amendment.
Hatua our president amechukua ni mzuri na inaonyesha ni ya mzuri kwa Kenya, lakini mahali ambapo naweza sema kwamba hakufanya kulingana na venye ningetarajia. Kama alikuwa anataka kudissolve cabinet, angeanza pale juu. Cabinet prime cabinet minister huyo ni mmoja wa wale ambao wangeweza kuguza, ndio tuone kwamba ametusikiza vizuri kama wananchi ambao anawaongoza. Tena kupitia pale kwa kina principal secretaries, pia huko angeangalia vizuri apunguze.
We look at things because now they have been sent home. The Gen Zs, we shall be happy because of their motion, but on the other side, we shall be looking where have they gone to. They will also create another problem which will not be treated well in the country. We may be very happy, but we have created some other things that will not be ogling well to the society. So when we are doing all the things, I would like to ask our president, anytime you make a move, you must think what move you have made, because it will also create another problem. So we have solved a problem because there was a motion, and now after moving to this one, it has also created a problem. You can see that there are some things that we can see there is handshake. Where we were refusing, now we shall still come in that handshake. We are still creating more problems. And the Kikuyu community, we shall be talking about something else.
Tunataka kushukuru sana kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Rais Ruto amefanya jambo, amechukua hatua ya kufuta wale ambao walikuwa wamechaguliwa bila kuwa qualified katika kazi, na tunataka kusema hawa watu ambao wamefutwa kazi leo, namba moja, wasije wakapewa kazi mahali nyingine katika serikali. Wacha waende nyumbani na waende wakatafute kazi na wakafanya biashara kama raia. Namba mbili, tuseme ya kwamba anapoenda kuchagua wafanyikazi wengine katika baraza lake la mawaziri, ajue ya kwamba sio wakati ule alikuwa anafanya kitu kwa nguvu. Lazima kila mtu afanyiwe ukaguzi kama amehitimu katika hiyo kazi yenye anapewa, na kama hajahitimu basi asipewe kazi. Ajue ya kwamba kuna watu wanakagua. Yeye si mwenyewe peke yake anakagua. Apewe wa Kenya hiyo kazi ya kukagua mtu, na kama mtu kweli hafai, wacha huyo mtu asipewe kazi.
Remember, Mudavadi is among some of the senior members who are of the set who were in this cabinet of President Ruto. Mr. Mudavadi himself, the first time that he joined the cabinet or became a minister in this country was around the year 1989 when he was only 29. But that time, we can say that he was in the age group or age set capacity of the current people who are demanding for transparency and his removal from the cabinet as he was only 29. And also, it is imperative to remember that it is Musalia Mudavadi who chairs the National Development Implementation Committee, comprising of all the public secretaries, principal secretaries, and the head of public service, Mr. Felix Kosgei. And in an address yesterday, the president said that he will continue to coordinate the affairs of the ministries until the broad-based cabinet is announced. So, why did William Ruto spare Musalia Mudavadi? Welcome to the Bold Analysis. My name is Frank. You know, the first factor or the first reason that I tend to think was the reason behind the sparing of Musalia Mudavadi was that it is true and it has come out evidently that one, Rigathi Gachagua cannot be relied upon to steer the ship. And that is why Mudavadi, who has vast experience in matters executive and running of the economy, was tapped to coordinate the principal secretaries. And the unreliability of Rigathi Gachagua is majorly due to the frosty relations between him and his boss, William Ruto. Gachagua himself has said at several instances or has indicated that things do not sit pretty well between him and his boss, often blaming some people surrounding the president. So Ruto, also being a political master, saw it that maybe sending Mudavadi home at the same time and remaining with Gachagua, that would result into some kind of frictional leadership between him and Rigathi Gachagua. So Mudavadi can always be in between him and Rigathi Gachagua as they steer the country towards the next phase of his administration after having dismissed the cabinet secretaries. Another reason that could have probably informed the retainers of Musalia Mudavadi was due to the upward performance of Musalia Mudavadi despite his prime cabinet secretary position being termed unconstitutional. So his upward performance, you could see sometimes, some months later, when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was taken away from Alfred Mutua and rewarded to Musalia Mudavadi. And the first task that he had to handle was the DRC Congo stalemate that saw Kenya KQ planes being barred from landing in Congo, and that forced even the MD of KQ to make a trip to Congo, where some workers of KQ had also been detained in Congo. That also saw a temporary closure of the DRC embassy in Nairobi and the ambassador being recalled to his country over that diplomatic stalemate that was there. So this is when Mudavadi flew in, went to the DRC and had a one-on-one talk with the President Felix Tshisekedi, and things seem to have had cooled at that time. I think that also had earned him an upward performance rating in this government and earned him the praise of his boss, William Ruto. Another thing is the issue of the National Security Council. Another issue is the issue of the National Security Council. You know, the security of a nation is very paramount. And that is why you could see the intelligence was worried, the police was worried, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation was worried on the security situation that had taken center stage following the protests by the Gen Zs, which also at some point was infiltrated by the goons. So the issue of the National Security Council, it had to remain, or it has to remain with members in order to receive security briefings and also coordinate the security of this country. Of course, there is the issue of Al-Shabaab insurgency, which is still a major security worry to Kenya and her neighbors. There is also the issue of the Houthis having patrolled the waters of Indian Ocean and posing a serious pirate threat, and having threatened Kenya after Kenya had agreed to be trying some of the members of the arrested Houthis in her courts within its jurisdictional boundaries. Of course, there are other things such as the global security perception, especially with wars in Russia and Ukraine, the wars between the Hamas and Israel around the Gaza area, and other regional instabilities such as the wars in DRC, the issue of taking our forces to Haiti, among other security concerns, and also internal security problems such as the issue of banditry in the North Rift, which has not ended. And also the protests are yet maybe to experience another wave. I saw various foreign countries issuing alerts of demonstrations that might be witnessed in Kenya in the coming days. So that National Security Council is very paramount because it consists of the president, the deputy president, who in this case is Rigathi Gachagua, whom we have reported not to be having good relations with his boss, and also has in the past rubbed shoulders with the National Intelligence Service, NIS, in the manner in which it failed to brief the country or the president properly on the seriousness and extent of the protests that were being witnessed in this country. The other members that comprise the National Security Council are also the cabinet secretaries in charge of defense and internal security. Now, in the event that the cabinet secretary in charge of defense, who is the chair to the National Security Council, had been dismissed also, that one required to at least have somebody from the cabinet who could remain rather in the National Security Council. The cabinet secretary in charge of internal security has also been dismissed, so it beats logic to at least have Musalia Mudavadi remain there, or at least one member of the cabinet who is of the level of a minister remain in the National Security. Of course, the Attorney General is also a member of the National Security Council, who has also been equally shown the door. So that one leaves some gap on the numbers within the national security. The other members comprise of the Chief of Defense Forces, the Director General for the National Intelligence Service, and the Inspector General of Police, who we expect, or it's seen that might also be forced to resign. You know, he has a constitutional tenure, meaning that the office of the Inspector General of Police is among the constitutionally protected offices, meaning, or loosely translating, that he can only exit the office upon the expiry of his term or on resignation of his voluntary resignation. So what Ruto might do in this case is the same thing that was done with the then Director General of DCI, George Kinoti, who was forced to resign. So in the event that the IG is forced to resign, the numbers within the National Security Council are likely to reduce before a new cabinet is in position or is in place. The other factor that could have led to the retainance of Musalia Mudavadi is the issue of the Western Region vote block come 2027. So the 2027 calculations might have saved Mwana Ohana or Musalia Mudavadi from the axe or from the purge, as his fellow members have been shown the door. Of course, this one is largely formed by also the frosty relations between Ruto and Rigiji. So, that one we had explained it earlier, that is why he needed to retain Musalia Mudavadi. So at least he has somebody whom he can consult on a time-to-time basis if that kind of counsel cannot come from the deputy president, and now even at a time when the advisor to the government or the chief legal advisor to the government is also not in office, that is the AG and other members of the cabinet. Also, still in this issue of the Western Region Bloc vote count 2027, you see the calculations that Ruto has put in place is that he has always used Mudavadi as a political bait for Raila Odinga, because Mudavadi has been pushed to court for Raila Odinga endorsement as a chairperson of the AUC seat. That one is something that Mudavadi has been the one who is spearheading, and this is something that also the country has spent quite a lot of money on, and it meant that sending Mudavadi home would mean that they would require, or it would put a significant pause on Raila's quest and the government's campaign for Raila to the AUC seat. So, meaning that maybe they had to wait for another cabinet to be composed in order for Raila to be given another cabinet secretary who would champion for his call or for his cause towards the AUC seat. So, largely also formed that the decision of Ruto might have been as a result of talks between him and Raila Odinga. So that must have necessitated the need to retain Musalia Mudavadi on that. And still on the Raila Mudavadi relations, you know, Raila might in 2027, if at all he wins the AUC seat, endorse the political kingship of Musalia Mudavadi of the Western region as a thank you note for Musalia Mudavadi for having supported him towards the AUC seat. And in that instance, that Raila might endorse the kingship of Musalia Mudavadi, and Musalia Mudavadi will probably still be sticking around with William Ruto. Then William Ruto can easily get to the vote basket of the Western region, now that the vote basket of Mount Kenya region is at stake. So that is how politically Mudavadi is very important to William Ruto. You see, some people had even, some analysts had even started saying that maybe Ruto might consider Musalia Mudavadi for the post of a deputy president. Of course, in a recent interview with one of the media stations in the country, Mudavadi said, or his response when he was asked that question was that, I want to quote him, that speculating about future elections is a distraction from the critical work that we must do today. The other reason as to why Mudavadi was probably retained, Mudavadi has always been seen as a conciliatory leader in the government ever since his appointment to the cabinet. Mpatanishi. You see, he played a huge role also in the upatanisho of Raila and Ruto. So that kind of conciliatory voice, and even in his personality seems to be so, could be a reason for his retainance. And he has also been said to be a voice of reason in the Kenya Kwanza administration. Being the voice of reason, especially among the cabinet secretaries that were in office, some were blamed for opulence, over expenditure, extravagance, lifestyle, not understanding the purpose and mandate or the job descriptions that were required of them, or the kind of conduct that was required from them as members of the cabinet. But Mudavadi seems to be somebody who has been understanding his assignment clearly. And also there is the issue of his willingness to resign as a leader of the ANC. You see, when he was appointed to the cabinet, the Constitution of Kenya stipulates that when you're appointed to the cabinet, you should not be a member of a political party or even a leader in that case for the case of the Public Service Commission Charter. So he is among the first people who are very much willing to resign from their political party seats, and he gave away the chairpersonship of the Amani National Congress and accepted immediately to join the cabinet. And also the issue of the merger between Kenya, the merger of the political parties within the Kenya Kwanza coalition. You saw Mudavadi was not tough-headed but was quite easy, and he accepted that he was ready to fold his ANC party to join with UDA in order to form a bigger political party with Mr. Ruto. So that one, in that event, it's a case of political loyalty being rewarded by Ruto to Mudavadi. And also, he's always been willing to work with the president, to work around the plans of the president and lead the president's foreign diplomatic relations, or what is the foreign relations of Kenya to or with other countries in case of multilateralism and bilateralism with other countries. Of course, the other last issue, which might be a small issue, of course, is to counter the spread or the voice of George Natembeya, the Tawe movement in Western Kenya. That Tawe movement poses a serious political threat to the future politics of William Ruto come 2027, not so future, just in the near future, and also the emergence of young leaders within the Western region, the likes of Babu Wino, whom are tipped maybe to will have be taking over from Raila Odinga, and other small emergence or serious emergence that might emerge from the region when Raila decides to retire from active politics. Thank you for watching. That marks the end of our analysis.